Recording in progress.
Good afternoon. We will call the Rules and Appointments Committee meeting to order for December the 5th, 2023. Ms. Carrillo, if you will, please call the roll.
Brenham,
Here.
Teratio.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Our next order of business is approval of minutes from November the 14th, 2023. You can find those on pages 6 through 8. Are there any changes that we need to make to the minutes?
Move to approve. Approve. Goodness.
Again.
Carrillo?
Yes.
Teratio.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next order of business is the interview and appointment. We'll have to go into executive session for that. Did I skip? Oh, I apologize. I skipped the adoption of the agenda. Thank you. Ms. Carrillo, do we have any changes to our agenda?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Ms. Carrillo?
Brenham,
Yes.
Teratio.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Item number 4, interview and appointment. Just for the record, I want to state that newly developed partnership that County Council is now responsible for appointing First Steps Partnership Board for the Richland County Library. And so with that, they make an appointment. We will interview this person. And based upon the interview, then council does reserve the right to approve or disapprove this person. And so with that, we will go into executive session to conduct an interview for Ms. Lee Patterson. I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Ms. Carrillo?
Brenham,
Yes.
Teratio.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Ms. Carrillo?
Brenham,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved.
I'll entertain a motion on this appointment.
Move to approve Ms. Patterson.
Second? Any discussion? Hearing none?
Brenham,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right, so our next item on our agenda is the notification of vacancies. And just for the record, I'll read them in. But Ms. Carrillo, if you will, just give us the dates of this notification and when it will be, I want to say airing, but the proper word, advertised. Thank you.
So this is going to run, will be submitted to council for the December 12th meeting, and it will run approximately from December 15 until February the 4th.
So for the record, the vacancies that we do have available is Accommodation Tax Committee, 4 vacancies, Board of Zoning Appeals, 1 vacancy, Building Codes, Board of Appeals, 8 vacancies, Business Service Center, 3 vacancies, Central Midlands Regional Transit Authority, 1 vacancy, Hospitality Tax Committee, 3 vacancies, Lexington Richland Alcohol and Drug Abuse Council, 2 vacancies, and the Richland Memorial Hospital, 4 vacancies. I'll entertain a motion.
Point of clarification. Did we say that the applications go through February or January?
Thank you for bringing it up. I want to correct myself. It will go from December the 15th until January the 12th.
Move to approve the advertisement of these vacancies.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Carrillo?
Brenham,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on our agenda, item 6, items for discussion/action. So you'll know, item 6A is the Richland County First Steps Partnership Board. We did, as a full council, we voted on the ordinance that would allow us to appoint for this board and to also include as a part of our day-to-day operations in Richland County. On your dais, you have an overview. This will be inserted into the other overviews that we already have. We spent lots of time editing those and getting those in sync. So when I reviewed it, it looks like everything is in order and goes along with the changes that we've made in the past. And so this item, to be clear, Ms. Carrillo, we do need to vote on this, and does this need to go back to full council or not?
No, ma'am, this is just for information for the committee, so that they will know that this will be added to the list of boards and committees that we already have. And if the committee approves the language, then we will just move forward with updating our website.
So you recognize,
Thank you. Typically, in our ordinance, we have this type of description, I guess, in the actual ordinance itself. Is that?
That's what it is.
But it isn't in the ordinance currently.
Yes, so we got the language from the ordinance.
so to that point, I did ask that question to Attorney Wright, and he said that the language was in the ordinance. I did not look at the ordinance to see how it was laid out, but I do remember when we were making edits and modifications, if they weren't there, we had to insert them. And so and I guess, are we speaking of the layout? Because the layout is what you're saying that has to be inserted. Is that correct?
So let me just, Madam Chair, if I may.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so the descriptions that you have in front of you came directly from the language of the ordinance. So this is not a new language developed. It's just been summarized so that it will fit in one paper. And then added the meeting dates and the times. So it's not verbatim.
I don't see anything, I'm looking at the ordinance, which was executed on, it's in our system, right? Unless there's a page missing or something. I'm looking at the actual ordinance, and all I have is, I got nothing on any of this, but how anything was appointed, how many, it said there'll be a partnership board pursuant to Act 81 of 2023, and members shall perform all duties and be subject to the rules of the committee provided by law. That's all it says about that. And then there are a few things about what they do annually. I don't see any of that.
So what I think that probably, and I'd rather us err on the side of safety. And so I would like to entertain a motion to accept the document that we have received from the clerk's office and send it to full council as well. And then if we don't need it, at least, we just don't need it, but I don't want us to not take action on this item, especially this is the closing of the year. We can just make sure that we have this covered. Attorney McLean, would that be your recommendation for us to do?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
This is just for discussion before a motion. As I was reading the document, the second sentence really seems like it's trying to describe the First Steps program. There's a lot of words there, but I feel like we could, I just wonder if we could be a little more concrete in what First Steps does, because if I was to boil it all down, I would get First Steps initiative is to serve the needs of young children and their families. Could we be any more specific than that? Is it more so to do with literacy, or is that just one component, or is that not a component?
My understanding, it's like a school readiness program, right? So I
Yes.
think that we should maybe have that reflected. I also just had one comment. So we've got to.
Could you hold that comment
Yes,
just
okay.
for a moment? Because I do want to have, I was going to call you Attorney Branham, Mr. Branham, his point to be noted. So, Ms. Carrillo, if you could, you made mention earlier that the language that we have before us came directly from the ordinance. So if that is the case, is this how they describe their program?
I'm looking at the ordinance themselves that Ms. McLean is referring to. So I want to say yes, but I want to pull the same, I want to pull that part here.
Are you talking about the one they just passed?
Yes.
Because I do
Okay. No, this comes
agree
from
with
First Steps
Mr.
directly.
Branham
Yeah.
that the second sentence is quite wordy. However, if it is how they describe themselves, and if that is the language that is also in the ordinance, then I would, as we have done with the other ones, we want to be consistent with the messaging. Yes, sir.
I would tend to, concur with that as well. So, when I heard it was a summary, it just made me wonder if maybe there had been a sentence skipped that might have just hit the nail right on the head.
This was just a draft for the committee to be able to review it and see if they hear your recommendations.
Okay, so with that being said, because there's obviously some confusion as to which ordinance we need to be working from, and also what I would just recommend is that this probably is not going to be one of those items that we will get to before the end of the year. So this will be on the next agenda in January. And so what I recommend is that the committee sends any suggestions to the clerk's office by next Tuesday. And the reason why I say by next Tuesday is so that because this is technically our last meeting as the current rules committee. So I want us to at least, because this came before us, I want us to have our say in this document as it comes to the next group. And they can choose to do whatever they like to do. So everybody's good with that? Ms. Carrillo, you good?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So we will move on to item 6B, which is the motion that came before us. I move that council establish written guidelines regarding the number of proclamations and acknowledgement of resolutions that can be presented at county council meetings. That was brought before us, Mr. Weaver and Ms. Terracio. Ms. Carrillo, do you have an update for us and a report for us on that?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have reached out to the ACAC and the Clerks Association and asked the question to different counties to find out what is the process that they are currently using. I received responses from 17 different counties. None of them have a written stipulation on how to present proclamations or resolutions. Majority of them say they don't have any limits. Their presentations are done on-site and off-site, which is similar to what we do. We do some on-site and some off-site. Some presentations, they don't have a limit on how long they can talk, but everyone has the understanding that is some brief remarks. So they are not written stipulations that either ACC or any other counties utilizing to regulate the presentation of proclamations or resolutions during their meetings.
So do you have a recommendation for us? Because I know part of it was we wanted you to research and then also bring back any type of recommendation that you may have based upon your findings. Do you have one for us?
Well, currently, what I can share is what we currently are doing behind the scenes. So when we are interacting with the persons who are requesting to have a proclamation done and reach out to council members, we do tell them during the at the meetings that they have about 20 seconds to say their thank you remarks, if any, and then it's up to each council member by our rules to present the proclamation or move it into a resolution by full council vote. So ultimately, is the desire is what the council wants to, the way the council wants to proceed, right? So we have, with the information that I received from all of the counties, from all of the other counties, is to keep with the same standard. I think it's gonna be important to keep in mind that if the council does desire to set some limits, to identify how those limits are going to be set. If it's going to be just 3 or 2 proclamations per meeting, how will they be identified? Which proclamation will have priority over another, and keep under consideration also when they are announcing or proclaiming the month of for a particular proclamation that is being requested.
So, hearing the report and findings of the clerk, is there a recommendation that this body would like to send back to full council? Recognize Mr.
Well, I still feel like potentially we could save some time if we took the idea that I proposed earlier, which was to at least just limit the reading of the first and the last paragraphs of the documents, and then potentially set some number of lines on how many can be included in the combination of the first and the second paragraph. That would be something where all of the recognition could still occur, just it would be briefer.
And so my question to you is, do we need a rule for that? Or could that be an understanding that we have coming from our clerk's office? Yes, you recognize.
I think it could just be a norm that we try to set. And I'm sorry, and I skipped over Ms. Newton, so.
Finish your statement. Definitely.
Yeah, that's just really kind of it. I just feel like if we don't need to write it into our rules particularly, but that we can all have an agreement amongst ourselves and with the clerk's office that we just set some basic norms, kind of like we've been doing for the past year or so, maybe.
I agree. I agree with you. I think that this is something that I feel comfortable with allowing the clerk's office to manage and monitor this appropriately. I think in good judgment that the clerk's office is not going to allow us to have 10 or 15 proclamations in one night. I just, judgment, I don't think that would be the case. Willow seems to be on top of her game. So I don't think so. And I just, I'm not a fan of trying to, legislate every little thing. Like when we can, as a body, come up with, what works for us, what doesn't work. But Ms. Newton, please weigh in.
Thank you. As a person who has previously complained at times when our resolutions have, it took 40 minutes, and I found that excessive. I agree with what I'm hearing here. I just wanted to say for the record that I don't feel like we need a rule. I think that we need norms. And I think that one of the things that happened that made it so long before was that there were a certain number of outside bodies that were scheduling on our calendar, and then council members were scheduling on our calendar. And I think in those initial days, there wasn't necessarily, that amount of coordination. And so I think that having norms will work. And then, I would just ask that, for example, full disclosure, going to do a resolution next week. And I even asked Ms. Horacio if she wanted to do one too, to honor teachers in our Teachers of the Year in our respective districts. But I would expect that if somebody else said, hey, we'd like to put on 3 more resolutions, that maybe there could just be a conversation, and whether we amend the reading of the resolutions or we do it differently, I think it's just more a question of how we handle things. But I know that I did attend one meeting remote, and because of the number of proclamations and a strangely placed executive session, I attended an hour and a half worth of meeting, but only 5 minutes of a council meeting. And it feels like a lot of resolutions take longer than the public input period is allowed to be. But I agree about a norm. And I just wanted to say that because I know I'm one of the people who had complained.
And thank you for sharing. So with that, we can, and this is what I'm not clear on, if we need a motion to send this back to full council without a recommendation.
But it depends on what you want, but I'll let her.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. Are you going to suggest, how about
Don't.
this? No recommendation then. If you're going to say that, I would say just do that out of an abundance of caution. But you probably don't need anything
Yes.
And so looking at the intent of the committee, if the committee says we don't need rules,
then make that motion.
But is even a motion required if it just doesn't move forward from committee? Does it have to move forward? Because there are things that die in committee all the time.
They do die in committee, but typically speaking, somebody can pull it out of committee. The better course of action would just be to end it. And if you just don't want rules, just send it forward with the recommendation. We don't have any.
But if it's the recommendation that we don't have any, then that is a motion. Whereas,
Correct, yes. Yeah.
So I entertain a motion to not have a recommendation.
Move to send this item to full council without a recommendation.
Second? Any discussion?
Is that,
Mr. Branham?
well,
What?
okay, can I try again? Okay. Move to send this item to full council with the recommendation that this not be a rule? Is that better?
That we not establish any
That we not establish,
actual rules or guidelines.
That-
Something
yes.
something to that effect.
that we that we send this to full council without any recommendations for, oh, gosh, okay, somebody else do it.
Right, Mr. Branham.
Yeah, can we make the motion, my motion is to report back to all of council, the full council, that we do not recommend establishing any rules of procedure related to resolutions or proclamations. However, we have asked the clerk to provide some informal guidelines to the full council and informally request that they abide by them.
Second.
Discussion?
May I quickly? I'm not going to repeat all that because that was really long. I think that the word formal in all that would be well placed as opposed to we don't want any rules. It's really, we don't want formal rules, but rather, never mind, do whatever.
Do you accept a friendly amendment?
Madam Chair.
For somebody on the committee?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You recognize Mr. Branham.
Just to address the comment, in my mind, I was distinguishing between rules of procedure and guidelines, where guidelines are informal, rules are formal.
Makes sense. Further discussion? Go ahead. Acting. So, Ms. Carrillo, y'all got me all frazzled.
Brenham,
Yes?
Teratio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
motion approved.
All right. And our next order of business is item 7, items for information. You can find there on page 18, the boards, commissions, and committee, the advertisement schedule, as well as our applications that are currently on file. Just again, as I have said all year long, good job. Let's keep up the good work. Whichever, if y'all come back on this committee, let's keep moving these applications forward and getting them placed on the boards and commissions and the committees that we seat. With that, our next order of business is item 8 for adjournment.
So move.
Second?
Ms. Carrillo?
Brenham,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
motion approved.
Thank you. We are adjourned.